Hi, I'm glad you were able to join us for part 2 of the Welcome Back to School message supported by the REL Southeast. In part 1, we hoped to equip you with some ideas that would support you in helping your students feel comfortable and safe in a somewhat changed environment. We discussed making it a priority to create a positive teacher-student relationship and build student engagement by attending to students' belongingness, competence, autonomy, and meaningfulness as key elements to make the start of the school year the best we can. In this segment, again, we welcome back Pam Harris, who will focus on ways of leveraging students' different mathematical strengths as a resource for learning, and on the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics effective teaching practices.
Educator and author Tracy Zager helps paint a picture of how not to start math class in the fall. In her blog, she describes her two daughters' first day of math at the beginning of the year. Each took a diagnostic test and was told, "There will be no talking, you may not work together, and I cannot help you." And then she suggests that teachers have two different dominant needs at the start of a school year. One, teachers need to set a tone and a climate for the mathematics. They need to build community and trust and relationships and an atmosphere conducive to collaboration and risk-taking and inquiry and learning. They need to establish routines and expectations. Two, teachers need to begin gathering useful formative assessment about their new students so they can plan effectively. And then she makes this important statement. The stock beginning of the year assessments fail on both counts because the information from the assessments is not useful. Of course, gathering formative assessment data is important. However, how we go about it is key. All the time, but especially this school year. How we begin the year matters. How might you begin the school year so to set the tone of what math class will be like all year long and gather helpful formative data at the same time? Zager ends her blog with a list of wonderful ways to start the school year and states that, above all else, you can make it clear what math class will feel like this year. And please don't tell me it will feel like there will be no talking. You may not work together. I cannot help you. What messages do you want to send your students about math class this year? Much of the advice for teachers and schools is to start the school year using a test to identify learning gaps, to diagnose and remediate. This can be termed a deficit approach, looking at gaps and what's missing. The NCTM Todos Mathematics for All joint statement calls mathematics educators to eliminate deficit views of mathematics learning, which includes the labeling of children's abilities with the use of standardized testing that position specific types of mathematics knowledge. In that joint statement, they write, deficit thinking implies that students lack knowledge and experiences expected by the dominant group. Deficit thinking ignores, dismisses, or casts as barriers mathematical knowledge and experiences children engage with outside of school every day. A social justice approach to mathematics education assumes students bring knowledge and experiences from their homes and communities that can be leveraged as resources for mathematics teaching and learning. The NCTM-NCSM joint statement, moving forward, urges us as math educators to use an asset approach, to focus on the opportunities for learning rather than the learning gaps, and to consider what mathematical content students know and what mathematical dispositions they have, because focusing on the mathematical strengths they bring to the table is critical. What do we do instead of testing kids to find their gaps and ensure students have access to grade level standards? In the opportunity myth, researchers have shown that teachers can improve student achievement by having a mindset of accelerating learning by creating high levels of engagement, by giving access to grade level assignments, by holding high expectations, and by providing strong instruction. Attending to students' sense of belongingness, competence, autonomy, and meaningfulness provide an environment fertile to high levels of engagement. Let's think a little about providing access to grade level assignments, knowing that many students are returning to school with unfinished learning. The NCTM-SM joint position moving forward suggests that prerequisite skills or understandings that may have been missed as a result of COVID-19 could be strategically taught right before the connected unit of study, or incorporated as spiral review or as part of the instructional routines and procedures. Spiral review means that teachers are incorporating the review as the school year progresses, reaching back to continuously revisit in order to keep it all fresh. Teaching these skills as connected to grade level or course level content deepens students' mathematical understanding. Teachers should plan these spiral reviews collaboratively using tools such as the Mathematics Coherence Map, taking into account students' previous learning. For example, a kindergarten teacher about to start a unit on the teen numbers could ask students to count the number of students for the lunch count, the number of pencils needed, the number of jackets hanging up. Have students compare their results and recount. Make the count count. Make it matter. If we turn that number in, will there be the right number of lunches? Fourth grade teachers could use problem strings to review single-digit fact relationships like this problem string that helps develop the over strategy in the week leading up to a unit on multi-digit multiplication. Teachers can draw on those relationships to reason about bigger numbers, like using 100 times 36 to reason about 99 times 36. This not only reviews past learning, but connects it to present learning. All teachers can use problem talks, sometimes called number talks, as formative assessment to see how students are already thinking about problems. Then use this information to inform instruction. If most students are solving fraction division problems like 5/6 divided by 2/6, using a quotative interpretation by asking how many 1/6 are in 5/6 and reasoning from there, then the teacher can focus on developing a partitive interpretation where students might instead think of creating an equivalent division problem with a denominator of 1 by multiplying both the 5/6 and the 2/6 by the reciprocal of the denominator. Both of these strategies can be developed such that students who are beginning to develop the relationships are learning them, while students who have already developed them are comparing and justifying which strategy to use when. Having high expectations of students means viewing students in terms of their strengths. This is counter to our experience as educators. Our system regularly asks us to identify what students are not able to do. I invite you instead to think about the intellectual resources that students bring. Consider the critical skills that you are using during this time that help you to engage in work. Let's call out these kind of skills to add to what makes a student smart in mathematics. Find strengths such as these and point them out to students, helping them recognize when they are engaging in mathematical behavior. Finally, we have decades of research around strong mathematics instruction. In the 2018 Principles to Actions, NCTM advocates for the use of 8 teaching practices. In the Moving Forward joint statement, NCSM and NCTM state that it is essential to use the 8 equitable and effective mathematics teaching practices, regardless of whether instruction is in person, remote, or hybrid. What are these teaching practices? Establish mathematical goals to focus learning. Implement tasks that promote reasoning and problem solving. Use and connect mathematical representations. Facilitate meaningful mathematical discourse. Pose purposeful questions. Build procedural fluency from conceptual understanding. Support productive struggle in learning mathematics. Elicit and use evidence of student thinking. Taken together, these practices support formative assessment strategies. For example, eliciting and using evidence of student thinking requires teachers to ensure all students believe that their mathematical thinking is valued. Effective implementation of this teaching practice includes posing purposeful questions, examining students' work on tasks, and observing students engaged in doing mathematics. It is critical that we continue to support students in productive struggle and engage them in meaningful mathematical discourse that happens in and out of the classroom. Students can formulate their thoughts and then record their thinking and connect mathematical representations in a variety of ways, including using tools and devices. At the heart of implementing tasks that promote reasoning and problem solving based on specific goals that focus student learning is a shift in thinking from an emphasis on answer getting, how can I get my students to figure out the answer to this problem, to an emphasis on problem solving, How can I use this problem to teach the mathematics of the unit? I'd like to leave you with one last big idea. Many teachers think about the math content standards that they are to teach, and they think, I'm supposed to teach this 3rd grade content this year. My job is to make sure students learn this 6th grade content, this Algebra 1 content. Oh, and I'll do it through the mathematical practice standards. Students need to learn the content, and we'll do some math practice standards to accomplish that content. What if we were to flip that? What if we reimagined our mandate as one to help students develop as mathematical thinkers, as problem solvers engaged in the math practice standards? And how to do that? How to create students reasoning mathematically? Well, this year, I'll do it with the 2nd grade content standards. My job is to create mathematical thinkers, solvers, reasoners. And I'll do it this year with the 7th grade content, with the Algebra 2 content. Let's use the mathematics teaching practices to engage students in the math practice standards using our grade level content as the focus for this year, and help our students move forward to get the best start.